Welcome to today's Fireside Chat series focused on corporate innovation, featuring Chris Bell, Vice President, Data and Analytics Center of Excellence at Trimble, Inc. My name is John Wensveen, and I am the Chief Innovation Officer at Southeastern University and Executive Director of the Levan NSU Broward Center of Innovation. Before we get into a discussion with Chris, I would like to take an opportunity to provide an overview of the Levan NSU Broward Center of Innovation. The Levan Center is a public-private partnership between Southeastern University and Broward County. We are building an economic and education development engine that is an opportunity gateway for Greater Fort Lauderdale, Broward County, and South Florida with local, regional, national, and international impact. One of our goals is to better link the South Florida innovation ecosystem by offering customized programs, events, and wraparound services to support the founder's journey from birth of an idea through successful exit or global expansion. Our three themes include innovation, technology, and entrepreneurship. Our four pillars are ideate, incubate, accelerate, and post-accelerate. Our six outcomes include breakthrough ideation, new technologies, a talent skills pipeline, new jobs, company formation, and scaling of early stage and young startup companies. We are launching a purpose-built 54,000 square foot facility in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, now under construction, and we look forward to opening this summer. Applications are now open for our virtual Ideate program launching in June and our virtual Incubate program launching in July. Details of our progress and programming can be found on our website at nova.edu/innovation. A brilliant idea is often what leads an organization to success, but growth brings its own set of challenges. In 1960, the average lifespan of a company on the S&P 500 index was almost 60 years. Today, the average age of companies listed on the stock exchange is under 20 years old. Since 2000, more than 50% of Fortune 500 companies have either filed for bankruptcy, been acquired, or ceased to exist. No organization, despite size, is immune to the threat of digital disruption. Take the taxi cab industry and the entry of Uber, or the hotel industry and the entry of VRBO and Airbnb. Corporate innovation can be defined as the process of enterprises implementing new innovation opportunities into existing business models. Corporate innovation is a relatively young phrase and gaining traction as innovation itself trends, becoming a standard value of forward-thinking companies. To understand corporate innovation as a practice rather than fluffy language, we have to look at how and why it gets used. Corporate innovation is the intentional fostering of out-of-the-box thinking within corporate environments, and to achieve this, many organizations are setting up satellite offices in co-working or other shared office spaces to get acquainted with startups in their industries and scope out potential strategic opportunities. So, why does corporate innovation matter? It is my pleasure to introduce Chris Bell, Vice President, Data and Analytics Center of Excellence at Trimble, and I look forward to discussing corporate innovation, including topics associated with growth strategy, the customer, and emerging technologies. Chris, we have heard so much about the work that you're doing at Trimble with regards to innovation. Perhaps a good way to start today's conversation is to provide an overview of Trimble, your role, and what the process of innovation looks like.
Sure. Hey, and John, thank you so much for having us and for having me on the program. And we're really excited and honored to just be here and talk about innovation. You know, it's interesting. Let me first set the frame, because this is really going to be a story of two parts. Is how does a local South Florida organization grow and to be a part of a much larger global Fortune 500 organization called Trimble. So Trimble is a technology company that helps industries through digital transformation. That's like our core ethos. And we have businesses in agriculture, in global positioning, in what we call autonomy, but what you would know as autonomous driving and vehicles, and then our construction technology business. And one of the really unique factors about what our organization really does is about connecting the digital and the physical worlds, where we're combining both hardware and software. And you know, if I had to describe the process of innovation for a second, I would root this entire conversation on a couple of fundamental belief systems that we have. One is innovation comes from anywhere in the organization. that you have to believe that in the core of who you are, is that there's nobody that has a market dominance or captured the market or cornered the market on innovation. There's no one single person in your organization that has all the answers for innovation in your organization. So you have to break the myths that innovation is the responsibility of the CEO or the CTO or the top product manager in your organization. Innovation can happen from anywhere in your organization. So that's super important and a core part of the belief system. And if I thought about another core part of the innovation model that we'll talk about today, it's about solving a problem that the customer has. It's about the knowing that what you're working on is not something cool for cool's sake. It's actually there to solve a problem that someone, honestly, with money to spend, will actually get value out of solving. And if you center your innovation around the idea that innovation can happen anywhere in your organization, and it solves a really important problem in the marketplace or with the customer, you're going to be set up for great success.
Excellent. So there was a quote that you and I was presented when we were talking at another point. Do you feel comfortable presenting that quote, because it really stuck with me?
Sure. Well, there's a couple. So one of the foundations that I think sets a culture of innovation within an organization, and by the way, I'll map to the topic of this webinar, which is corporate innovation, right? 2 words, but very important meanings. So corporate does not mean corporation, right? There's no like obscure identity of something where innovation happens. It's corporate means a group of people. And that maps back to the idea that again, innovation happens in teams and with people. And so it's not a single person or an organization's job. And then the innovation idea is the word defined is really about the concept of a new idea or an improvement to a process. So to get there, we have this foundation, John, that you're talking about, which is your opinion, however interesting, is irrelevant. And those are hard but humbling words to hear. And I want to impress that upon you, is that we actually believe that is we check ourselves in moments when we're ideating on concepts, and we say to ourselves, tell me the customer that said that, or tell me what other organizations you've talked to that share that problem. Because the idea is that if we all have opinions, there's lots of executives and people in an organization that will have a great opinion on how to solve a problem. But the importance of your opinion, however interesting, puts you in a position to say, have you talked with people in the marketplace that have that problem? And it combines with another term that we have, which is a saying that gets us up and out of the office. And it's a concept that we call nihito, and please don't take any offense to this, because I'll explain it first, is nothing important happens in the office, nihito. And nihito is just a rally cry. My finance partner, our CFO, would say, oh, that's interesting, Chris, that no one would get paid if nothing interesting happened at the office. So it's not intended to offend any others, but for people whose job it is to find problems to go solve with innovation, then oftentimes you have to at least get up and out of in this case, your home office, and get on video conference calls, or when we're not in a situation and we can travel, is get up and get out of the office and get into the field where the customer is actually experiencing those problems. And if you become infatuated with their problems, innovation sparks all over the place, because you become an expert on the customer's problem. And in most organizations, you have employed incredibly bright people who will come up with incredible ways to solve the problem. but you have to characterize the problem that you're solving really, really well.
Right. So I'm going to take one exception to Nihito. So I'm in my office right now, and there's something very important happening by being in my office and connecting with you today.
That's true. That is true.
But I love it, and I had not heard of that. But conceptually, that makes an awful lot of sense, and I appreciate that. So this is a great way to launch this conversation that we've got going today. And I feel like I don't even have to ask you questions. I could just let you talk, and I think you're going to give us a very compelling story. But with that, I would like to talk a little bit about the story of Trimble, and from the beginnings to where it was, where it is, where it's going, because it's a remarkable success strategy.
It is, and this is where I'm going to tell you the local South Florida story side of the equation, because I'm very close to that one, and it's just a beautiful story. So the end of the story is that EBuilder, as an organization, joined forces with Trimble. At the time of the exit, had record valuation. Was one of the largest exit strategies in South Florida. It became a part of a NASDAQ traded, publicly traded organization, and and we as Trimble are considered one of the largest construction technology organizations in the world. So, I mean, to say it's a success is probably the biggest understatement that I can say today. So EBuilder is the organization that a local fella, John Antevi, had founded. And this is the really great part of the story. So the way the story goes is this young fella, John Antevi, and I've had a beautiful opportunity to just become a friend of John and Ron Antevi. And I'll map where Ron comes in. But it was a master's thesis that started it all. And this was way back in the early 90s when Windows 3.0, if you remember that, was just coming out onto the scene. It was like, oh my goodness, a user interface for computers. And it had this thing called a modem. For those of you that have a little bit of silver hair like I do, you'll remember the funny sounds of a 14.4K baud modem, and it connected to America Online.
Oh my goodness.
Now, here's the interesting part, and this is where the dawn of innovation happened for EBuilder, is that John Antevi, doing his master's thesis, saw a problem. And remember, the root of the problem is that he saw inefficient communication processes happening on construction projects. And he thought, here's this new tool. It's called a PC, and it connects on the internet. I wonder if web technologies will actually help the construction industry. It was a question. And so what he did was he went out and decided to talk to people and find out if that's true or not. Was there a promise that computer technology could solve a construction problem? And so he pulled together a thesis and an advocate, let's call him, an encourager. And this is a really important takeaway. If you're in a leadership position, I want you to hear this. A young man had an idea, and an encourager told him he should go for it. And so he put it together and he started an organization. At the time, it wasn't even called EBuilder, it was called Mercury Interactive. And they built websites for construction projects. And the idea here is that he had this opportunity to take an emerging technology at the time, which was the web, and apply it to an age-old problem, which was miscommunication on construction projects. And then he prototyped. Another key takeaway is that he didn't try to boil the ocean. He took one problem and said, hey, let's try it. Let's go ahead and help people store information and communicate with one another. The early days of this technology were very simple demonstrations to the customer. It was just this idea of, hey, I have a question, and then someone else on the other side of a computer, not in the room because they communicated through the internet, said, here's the answer to your question. And I'm telling you that audiences were aghast that you could do that at the time. totally shocked that you could type in a computer and someone would answer your question. And what that meant, by the way, the current state at that time was it took like 7 days, 14 days to get an answer to your question. And here was this mechanism that decreased the cycle time from 14 days to 10 seconds. It was like this light bulb went off in the construction industry. And that was when this gentleman, I'll name him, his name was Hoyt Lauder from a consulting organization called FMI, told John, you have something special here. And there was a process of encouragement that flourished the innovation. And so, part of me telling that story is to pull out that piece, is if you're in leadership today, there's somebody in your organization that has an incredibly bright idea. And it might not be the person's whose job it is to come up with the ideas. Listen to them and then do something crazy. Encourage them, right? Don't tell them all the challenges about the problem. Don't tell them why it's so hard and you can't do it that way. Just say, that's a great idea. You should explore it. You create sparks in your organization. And that's what happened to this young man, John Antevi, that grew an organization valued at $500 million. That's pretty extraordinary. So I could go on.
Well, so that's more than extraordinary, and it's funny. So I'm bringing back memories. So I'm turning the big 5-0 this Friday, so I have some gray hairs on me as well. So when you're talking about Windows 3.0 and the modem and AOL, I mean that was all part of my my younger years, and I totally get it. And it is more than an amazing story. It is more than extraordinary to go from that to $500 million valuation, but incredibly. Amazing, especially for South Florida, and then the impact it's had on the industry. And when you're describing the story, I was really thinking what really was invented was a time machine for the construction industry. When you go from that 7 to 10 days for a response, and all of a sudden it's 10 seconds, to me, that's a time machine. And great things will continue. So, and you've touched on this a little bit, but if you start thinking about key practices that ultimately make the company successful, how do you shape innovation within your organization, or generally speaking? And I'm always fascinated by people's responses, because I previously worked at an organization where I was told I was too innovative. So my job was about innovation. I was actually to innovate, but I was told I was too innovative. And here I am in a new role as the Chief Innovation Officer in an amazing organization where there's one rule. There are no rules when it comes to innovation. It's think big and great things begin to happen. But I'm really curious from your perspective, how do you develop this mindset or this culture to stimulate innovation and make sure that it's successful?
Yeah. So, and this one is a combination of tactical things you can do, but then some of these things are cultural and postures in the organization. And certainly you've heard me talk about the humility aspect of saying that it's not one person's job to do all the innovation. You may have somebody who's at the tip of the spear, who is the coordinator of innovation. I certainly find myself in that role. A lot of the work that I spend my time on today is on machine learning and artificial intelligence projects, but in no way, shape, or form is my job to drive what those projects are. It is to coordinate, accelerate, put fuel on and resource the amazing ideas that bubble up in the organization. Mm-hmm. So, one thing is certainly that aspect of making sure you have a mechanism for collecting great ideas and innovation. I love, John, your rule that you have now, right? How freeing that is, that there is no rules, no boundaries. There's this concept of making sure that you've got great ideas and you want to accelerate how quickly they come to the surface. And so I think it's important to do a couple of tactical things. When you think about the set of problems that you can have, and I'm looking at a note here that I wrote to myself. There are internal innovations that I would classify as operational. There are great ways that you can do things more efficiently, that you can drive cost or drive time out of a process, and they're really important. And those, you have a group of people typically within an organization that say, hey, I look at how we operate as an organization, and let's create efficiencies. And so innovation can happen in those areas. They tend not to be customer centric. They're more operational centric and about your organization.
Right.
And then there's another classification, which is the stuff that I spend a lot of my time on, which is outside the organization, which is about the market and customers' problems. And as long as you have listening mechanisms for both of those areas, that's how you can put yourself in a place where you can apply innovation. So one of my favorite techniques that we have today, and this is within the Trimble organization, is this idea and concept called Dreamer Hack. You've heard about hackathons, and you've probably heard about, I don't know what people's pictures are, is, some group of people, usually not you, and it's somebody else, that sit in a room and they have a bunch of sticky notes on whiteboards, and that's where, innovation comes from. So we don't believe in that. And what we do is we literally foundationally believe that any idea, a great idea, can come from anywhere in the organization. So we have a concept called Dreamer Hack, and we invite an entire organization worldwide, 12,000 plus people in any office from Sunrise, Florida to Espoo to Christchurch, and say, guys, during this period, you're invited to submit ideas, and managers give people time to create these teams and ideas. And maybe similar to a Shark Tank-like idea or model is that each team is given a parameter to say, hey, we're trying to solve a couple of problems in X industry. So we do give them some direction, but not any rules. And then we invite them to submit proposals. And what the teams do is they get basically a couple of minutes to put a video together. And the main purpose is describe the problem, describe the ideal solution, how will you approach the problem, and what will be the outcome. And we get submissions from all around the world. And in that process of collecting those great ideas, we have the opportunity to create a panel of people that will evaluate those ideas. And here's the best part of it, is your idea has a chance to bubble up, to get you an appointment to meet our senior vice presidents in the organization worldwide. So these are, busy executives running a multi-billion-dollar organization, but you'll get lunchtime with them and the CEO and the CFO. And the final outcome of the top projects get funded. Not a little bit, a lot. You will get funded in the tune of lots. I won't describe the exact funding amount, but let's say it's enough to get you started. Something's typical of a startup type organization. And what happens in that process is that you, yesterday, maybe your job was logistics in a manufacturing location, or you were a procurement professional, or you were a salesperson. Your idea can go from idea to funded initiative within a 6-week period. And it's super exciting. And the outcome culturally is employees feel that they're listened to, that there's a path for their ideas to get funded and to get backing from a corporation. And it creates this sense of excitement. And then here's the trigger is it's a continuous learning loop. Innovation breeds innovation. And so if you stimulate innovation in other people, it becomes fun, it becomes competitive, it becomes this engine of amazing ideas. And each year it gets bigger and better and more thought through, deeper solutions, and it's super fun.
So I know I'm not eligible to submit anything, but you got me really excited about what that would look like. So you hit on something that I think is very key too, that I find in a lot of cultures where maybe the mindset of innovation isn't developed very fully. It's not defined, and people come up with ideas or they're afraid to speak. And in some organizations, my motto is that you should be afraid not to speak, and bring those ideas up. And the question, I guess, is when somebody comes up with a great idea, does somebody else take it, essentially steal it from you, and you're no longer involved, or you turn around and you empower the individual or the team to take it to the next level? And it sounds like it's the latter, that you empower those and you support them to get them to the next level, which also I think really probably brings a very positive culture and climate to the work environment.
It is. I mean, what you want, if you're a leader of an organization trying to stimulate innovation in your company, you want the person that has that sort of deep passion, and make sure that they're involved in it. If you create this concept of great idea, thank you, let's give it to the people that know what to do with it, then what will happen is that you can unintentionally suppress the idea creation process.
Yep. Is
that there's a consequence to speaking out about an idea, which is great idea, someone else gets the credit. And that's not a culture that will drive new ideas. Now, an individual may come up with a great idea and not have the expertise to engineer the solution, right? Of course, you're going to augment the team with your bright engineers who are going to code a solution. But you do want to reward the individuals that came up with the innovation. And part of that is to see their idea come to fruition, however small or however big. This, so we have a big scale type process called Dreamer Hack that does this. But this can just be done in very small operational decisions that you make day to day, which is again, putting yourself in check, saying, hey, we're not the owners of every idea in the organization. And when a good idea comes, encourage them. And then release them to go do the additional investigation. And you can do this in a cost-effective way. You don't have to go right from nothing to yes, all in yes. You can say, that's a great idea, go test it. And you give them a little bit of an opportunity. Maybe it's just some hours in their work week. It's not even a cost to you. But you encourage them with hey, let's explore it, and let them ride the whole process of testing their decisions. And if they do it well and it's a market solution, they test it in the marketplace. They get a couple of customers. They get the customers' eyeballs on that idea. And before you even start coding, you're sharing prototypes and ideas on clear articulation of the problem, and then unpacking what the solution could be.
So I'm curious, when you do this worldwide Dreamer Hack, do the majority of these solutions have an impact on the entire organization worldwide, or is it more localized to the region in which the idea is spawning?
Yeah, so this is a great question. So again, I know we have a couple of senior leaders in organizations, and if you are an individual contributor in an organization, this is an important concept for you to understand. In most major consulting organizations, if you talk to somebody at a McKinsey or a PricewaterhouseCoopers or somebody like that, they always, they'll laugh at me and give me a hard time, but they draw 2x2 grids. And a 2x2 grid, imagine a crosshair in this screen right now. And on one axis is the idea of existing market and a new market, right? So that's one axis. And then on your vertical axis is existing technology or new technology. So if you are in the lower left quadrant, you're in an existing market with existing technology. That is the easiest place to get quick wins on innovation. Now, if you're in the opposite side, which is the upper right quadrant, the top right quadrant, some people consider that to be the magic quadrant, but it's also a risky area. This is a new technology or new idea in a new market. To a CEO, this is the land of risk-taking, and sometimes the land where CEOs don't become CEOs anymore. Uh, and so you have to take measured approaches. So our approach is oftentimes, when you think about solutions, is to go into the other quadrants. You can do a couple of moonshots. You should, right? I'm not discouraging that at all. But take a measured approach. Is sometimes, and this is where we often see our innovation from Dreamer Hack, is it's a new idea in an existing market. So there's one variable, which is the new idea, but we know the market well. We know the customers, the buying process, we know everything about it.
Right.
So we can focus on the new idea. Or there's the other side of the equation, which is take an idea that exists in some other industry and move it into a new market. That's also innovation. Just because you're not creating the newest, AI engine of something doesn't mean that's not innovative. We often find that the Dreamer Hack process will create several ideas in both quadrants of new idea in an existing market and an existing idea in a new market. And then there'll be that kernel of totally crazy breakout moonshot ideas that'll be in the new areas. And oftentimes what happens is that we will get behind a blend of those.
So that's fascinating. And you really bring up another good point that it's not always putting money into something. Maybe a new idea, a new way of doing something. And there's a particular brand that I'm thinking about here in South Florida that's pretty significant, that uses a lot of Japanese management principles into their thinking process. And then when you put that into this American culture, how you can actually disrupt in a very positive way because you're thinking differently and new ideas begin to spawn and great successes. So I always love learning and hearing stories about people learning from other cultures that bring it into what would be considered a foreign culture and see how you can disrupt in a positive way. So with that, I think it's a really good segue into you. I want to talk about you for a moment and what your role is and what your legacy is in terms of innovation and the roadmap at Trimble. What are you doing to change the world?
Wow. Well, that's a big question, and I probably have a hard time about speaking about me personally, because I play, a role of probably one of the encouragers. Is that I get this amazing opportunity to listen to really bright teams with great ideas and get behind them. My specific expertise is in the construction industry. So when I joined the organization, I joined through EBuilder. So Ron Antevi, the CEO, just probably one of the best leaders I've ever worked for. Just unbelievable skill in listening, encouraging, and just getting the best out of all teams. I mean, I can't tell you how much of an impact. The quick story is John Antevi, with an amazing idea, founded the business, and then he got super smart. He realized that his best value to the organization was to be the person out in the marketplace, and that there were better, smarter people at operating a business. And that's where Ron Antevi came into the picture. So 3 years after the founding and the direction was formed for the business, John Antevi calls his brother Ron and says, "Hey, Ron, I'm going to need your help." And Ron Antevi joins the business. So two brothers, run the organization. And it was such a joy to work with them because the foundation of humility, think for a second. John Antevi founded a business that had a record valuation, in the marketplace. And I'm telling you that he, again, the founder of the business, he reported to a vice president in the company. That's what his humility level was. It's unbelievable. I don't know that I've ever met anyone like that before. It's amazing to me. And his whole service attitude set that culture of innovation, is that we're here to serve the marketplace and our customers. And so now my role, I look at it very similar in that way, is how can I be of service to the people who really do the innovation in the company? So I run a center of excellence in our construction sector. So I mentioned we have an agriculture business, we have a geospatial business, and we have an autonomy business, and our construction industry. So I look after about a $1.3 billion revenue-based organization that, I play a small part in concentrating our center of excellence around data and analytics. And in that practice, what we do is we take all of the amazing ideas that happen globally within the organization in the areas of artificial intelligence and machine learning. What we do is we look at the merit of all the great ideas that are happening, and then we look at the ability for that solution or that problem that they found to have wide, transformative impact in the construction industry. And then we prioritize. I think you'll find that this is the entrepreneur's dilemma, and it is a core foundation to how Ron and John grew the EBuilder organization from making zero money, in a garage to a publicly held organization, is focus. And so that value has really impacted me. And what we do is we think about all the problems that we can solve in the construction industry. There are many. Design, engineering, design modeling, to actual how constructions get built, to how people operate real estate and facilities. We think about all of it. John, you're building a new facility, you probably get to see a lot of that happen. There's a lot of coordination that needs to happen. So what we do is we take all those bright ideas and say, what is the real business case for that, solving that problem? What addressable market can it actually have? Is it local or is it global? And once we get those defined, we say, you know what? This has the best opportunity. We have the right combination of talent, motivation, passion, access to the marketplace, and a go-to-market channel. And we say, that's the great idea. And then we start to divert resources to that project. And we build critical mass and expand. So it's super, super fun. Let me tell you one story. So in the construction world, you probably wouldn't understand unless you're in it. There's a process of building stuff, right? So a building is being built. Steel is, poured into concrete and it starts to come out of the ground. And it's somebody's job to go out and inspect this on a daily basis. And sometimes on a really large project like an airport, these are teams of people that need to go out and do this all the time. And it can be inaccurate in terms of the progress. It's subjective and so on. So we had this great idea is there's an emerging technology in robotics, and we are one of the leaders in laser scanning and visual imaging. So we have investments now today where we had an opportunity to take a autonomously driven vehicle, and I say driven, on a construction site. They're not roads or other things. We actually teamed up with Boston Dynamics, and we have an autonomous robotic dog named Spot. And Spot is an expert climber, climbs stairs, climbs rocks, traverses, all kinds of difficult situations, can step over things. And we mounted our reality capture device, which is called a total station, on top of Spot. And so here and today, there are projects in construction where each day, at the end of the day, a robotic, autonomously driven, AI-driven dog with a mount goes out and scans the progress of a project and reports back into a computer model exactly how much construction got done that day. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. In the beginning, we'd bring Spot out to the job site. It almost stopped construction because people were so amazed at what this can do. But here's the deal. This was just 10% of a new idea. It wasn't like a complete, amazingly new idea. It was, wow, this is an inefficient subjective process. How can we make it really efficient and precise? And so we took a technology that existed in another industry and applied it to the construction industry. That was one of those on the 2x2 grid.
Yeah.
New technology was the only variable. Existing market was the non-variable. And we were able to apply that technology, and it's just amazing at what it can do. So that's an example of what I get to do every day. I have the best job in the world.
Well, the fact that you don't stop smiling shows that you're really happy with what you're doing, and it's going to lead to another question about talent and skills and personality in just a moment. But I want to go back to what you're mentioning about John and Ron Antebi. So I've never had the pleasure of meeting John Antebi, but I know Ron very well, and we're very fortunate to have him on our board here at the Levan Center of Innovation. And he's one of the most down-to-earth people I have ever encountered in my life. And you talk about focus, when we have him in meetings, he's the one guy, like I'll be at 30, 60,000 feet doing this, and he's like, let's focus. And he brings it down to ground level, and great things begin to happen. And so I'm very fortunate to know Ron, and now I want to get to know Spot. If there's ever an opportunity to meet your dog Spot. But when you talk about talent and skills, we know that there's often an abundance of talent, but not necessarily an abundance of skill talent, or the kind of talent that different types of industries are looking for. And we're certainly finding this in the world of technology, to get that skilled credential talent and get these accelerated pipelines in order wherever they may come from, so that we can support industry growth. I'm really curious, just within the Trimble environment, when you look at talent, what role does innovation play when hiring new talent or promoting within your own organization or within a team?
Yeah, so it's really important. I think it's a core aspect of how we approach recruiting, and we have a general strategy. So look, there's a model that exists oftentimes with universities, especially in research-driven universities, is that research-driven universities often will hire a research PhD that is an expert in a particular field. And what happens is then, if you have that individual on your team, then you attract graduate students. And then graduate students then start to do amazing research out of that institution. And then that attracts undergraduate students. And it's this virtuous cycle that's created within the university. It's no different in your organization when it comes to innovation. You need talent, and you can have great ideas but if you don't have the ability to execute on a great idea, then your innovations are great ideas. The world is filled with amazing ideas that never come to fruition. It breaks my heart, but you can do something about that. And it take the bold step and invest in a critical mass. So our approach is really simple, is that you can have, we're global, we have worldwide offices, but we really do have some centers where there's amazing innovation that comes out of certain geographies. And it's not because some local culture has captured the market again on innovation. It's just that critical mass was built there. What happens, and I'll look to our South Florida office, is that we chose to make an investment in machine learning and artificial intelligence. EBuilder as an application had built up 20 plus years of detailed construction data that no one else in the world has. And we knew that in order to unlock its potential and to create amazing artificial intelligence on how to improve construction processes, we needed a data science team. And so when we went out to recruit, we like an NFL football organization, we decided to recruit the best of the best. And we made sure we got a hold of a senior level, chief technology level individual. His name is John Maliani, really amazing guy. But the fella is patent holding machine learning level person. And so with a quarterback on your team, then we were able to recruit a data science team, and we chose our senior level folks, PhD, patent holding machine learning levels. Maybe that's inaccessible to you and your organization. Maybe you're not that person. You don't need to have that rock star of a team, but what you do need to do is to say, hey, this person has done it before and can do it. And how can I bring that person to the organization or become that person in the organization? And that is a lighthouse. It attracts more talent. And then as you bring in more talent, like that university picture, it becomes easier to attract more and more of that talent. I would say our approach to recruiting involves asking great questions. We don't think a PhD engineer, data scientist is the only way innovation comes. We ask simple questions like, tell me about a problem that you solved. How did you approach solving the problem? How did you incorporate a team approach to solving that problem? And if we hear the right things in that process, then we know they have a bend towards innovation.
Interesting. So that was going to be one of my questions, is actually about cross-functional teams and how you create them, how you connect them, and get out of that organization or that environment where there's a lot of silos. So how do you bust down the silos so that people are working together? But I mean, this whole discussion is really fascinating to me. And as you talk, I'm thinking about more and more ideas and more questions that I think I'm going to want to invite you back to do a round two if you're open to it.
Sure.
And maybe even bring in a couple of other individuals from the Trimble world, because this is the type of storytelling that really has a significant impact on our audience. And we have a very diverse range of people that are following what we're doing here. But it's fascinating to me. And what I want to do in the last couple of minutes, because I literally have so many questions that I want to ask you, but I like to always turn it around, because I know sometimes it's frustrating when you're on the other end that I didn't get to say this or I didn't get to talk about that. If is there something that we're missing that we need to touch on today, assuming that we're going to go and do a round two? But what's one thing that's just burning that you just got to tell our audience today that's just that important?
Yeah. So one is I would definitely say you can do it. It takes courage to put an idea out there. And here's the amazing thing is that you have to be willing to fail. I'll give you a funny analogy that it really works for me. Is my daughter is a skateboarder. She likes to skateboard. She's in the 10th grade. And I was having a conversation with her, and I found myself coaching her because she was just struggling with learning new moves. And I found myself saying this, is that skateboarding is the process of failing. 95% of the time, you're going to fall and not land the trick. And then 5% of the time, you're going to stick it. And it's going to be awesome. And everyone's going to be impressed. I didn't know that skateboarding has such a direct analogy to innovation in our organizations. Guys, 95% of the time, our idea isn't necessarily going to work. What you want to do is give yourself permission to fail, but fail fast, and then learn from it. And innovation is an iterative process that you do with external people. You will not fail fast if you sit in a boardroom and talk to each other and unpack an idea and then go develop it. That's called field of dreams development, with the idea that if you build it, they will come. I'm just going to pop a pin in that balloon and tell you that that's a bad way to innovate. It's the most expensive way you can do it. So what you want to do is get an idea, attempt to fail fast, and go vet it with the marketplace. Go talk to real people with real money and find out if it actually holds water. And if it doesn't, find out why. And sometimes you'll abandon an idea. That's okay. Don't punish people for having a bad idea. Encourage it. And if you create that atmosphere, one of these ideas will fall into that 5%, and it will be an absolute transformative breakthrough idea. And by the way, don't go it alone. Team up with the Levan Center, team up with peers in the marketplace. Like, you don't have to go it alone. I love this organization. I love what they're all about. They're here to help you. They're creating great innovation centers. They're creating this community where entrepreneurs can talk to one another and learn from one another. Take advantage of it. Don't be lonely in your innovation.
So I don't know if you thought about it, but there's so many quotes that I've been writing down, but you could write your own book on motivational quotes around innovation. So in your free time. So as we get to the end here, I just want to list some of the key takeaways. So what I've noted is that if you must give permission and you must be willing to fail. If you're a skateboarder, you'll find that 90% of the time you'll fail, but 5% of the time you will stick the landing and stick it big. Don't go alone. Team up with the marketplace. There's been an explosion in corporate innovation in recent years. Organizations can no longer be traditional thinkers, as we've learned today, and that the focus on the customer must be an obsession and not an afterthought. The old way of doing things no longer works in the age of acceleration and disruption. An agile startup must thrive with the latest technology and talent. Established organizations must adjust their business models. Rapid changes in the marketplaces drive customers towards the most convenient products and services, and instant gratification is paramount, which was something that I was learning from another organization the other day. Everything's on demand these days, and customers want solutions at the touch of a button. So I cannot thank you enough, Chris, for participating in today's Fireside Chat series. We thank you for everything that you're doing, supporting innovation, technology, entrepreneurship, the world of Trimble and beyond. And we do welcome you back anytime. And I certainly do want to follow up with you on a phase 2, because I think this is just amazing. And we just don't have enough time to cover everything, but you've kept me on the edge of my seat the whole time. And you're a story, the Trimble story. It's an inspiration to others. And I'm certain that our audience will have something very positive to take away from today's event. So I can't thank you enough for everything you did today.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
All right, so as we close out, the Alan B. Levan NSU Broward Center of Innovation will open this summer. In the meantime, we are offering scheduled virtual events, and you can view our calendar by visiting our webpage, nova.edu/innovation, or you can email us at innovation@nova.edu, or you can call our hotline at 954-262-TECH, TECH, and one of our friendly operators is standing by waiting to assist. Don't forget to check us out on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Thank you for joining us today. Stay safe and healthy, and this concludes today's Fireside Chat. Have a great day.